Bonin.
Is that the one on Shadewood?
North.
You like the dill chips?
I do.
Yeah.
I'm a little sad
there.
that they're cold by the time they get there.
Oh yeah, those are ones you need. You need them right out of the fryer.
Oh, those chips though. That they
Three Wiseman
make?
chips, yeah.
What are those, like kettle chips? Like,
yeah, but they have their own like seasoning on them.
See those? I love those.
Yes.
It's unfortunate that a lot of the foods that we make do get cold really fast. We stopped doing the string fry thing like the Steak and Shake has because they get cold so fast.
Oh yeah.
Those chips though. I mean,
they're the bomb.
I
get
just
them
want to
with
steal a
like
bunch
nacho
of them.
cheese and just dip it. Oh man,
and that buffalo chicken dip.
7 titles dip. Yeah.
I love talking about food.
Me too.
You know what? We're not talking about parenting. We're talking about food today.
I worked there for 3 years and I'm not tired of the food yet.
Because the menu is comparable to like Cheesecake Factory.
Yeah,
they're like page
stuff.
18. You'll find page 18.
But when people say like, well, "You guys don't have steak," I'm like, "Does this look like a steakhouse?"
No,
food,
yeah.
Like,
if you want steak, we'll tell you where to go for the steak.
That's what used to make me laugh.
Lowe's right next door.
Exactly.
Or,
which is
Cooper's
very
Hawk
good.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
When I worked at B-Dubs, when the lady and the gentleman would come in, I have a Riesling, and I'm like, it's B-Dubs.
Yeah.
What do you
Sister,
want?
we got red and white.
And then I can get you something that I could twist the
I
cap
do the
off
same
for
thing
you.
here. They ask for wine, and I'm like, "Where's the Scotty's Brew House?"
Brew.
B-dubs, we have Febreze when you leave.
Yes. I do love B-dubs though.
But that's the Bloody Mary
I don't
mix.
like their
the
wings.
B-Dubs Bloody Mary mix, and it's really good.
It is.
I don't
good.
like B-Dubs bone-in wings.
But I don't like bone-in wings. Period.
Oh, that's too much work.
It
Oh no, I don't like boneless.
Boneless.
I love bone-in. I won't eat boneless
They're-
just
they're
on ethics alone.
Their bone-in wings are disgusting.
It
They're
depends
fatty and gross.
because I used to work there. I just already said that, but the one in Muncie.
Oh yeah. I have a story about that.
but
I have lots of stories about
Is it
that.
a parenting
B-dubs.
story?
Kind of. I was pregnant in college, so it works.
The issues with B-Dubs wings is their supplier will start to short them, and the wings will get smaller, and then the owners have to complain, and then they'll
I
for the
don't
next
care
couple
about them
months
being smaller. I care about they're always
The
fatty.
consistency.
They're fat like
With
giant,
like meat.
like with Scotty's. I love our wings, and they're actual like meat on. There's no fat like the old.
But you went to the B-Dubs when it was in the village still.
Okay, easy.
I'm just saying. I worked at the
Because
one out by the mall.
Because I lived 2 blocks from there. I lived on Dix.
And
So
I did as well.
You did?
Yep.
My
Oh my
girlfriend
God.
that I was just on the phone with, she went to Ball State.
Yeah.
And when we first started dating, I was like all up in Muncie,
Yeah.
going to in the village or whatever, doing
Yeah.
like what's that place called? The little coffee place. Something about.
I see, babe. I was
That's
there
a
in
long time.
2000, so I really don't
Empty
know.
cup.
Well, the Scotty's was there.
Scotty's was there, and it was very new. But see, I worked at the locker room across the street, and I worked at Bill
So
Street. And those
I
things aren't even there anymore.
love the locker room.
Locker
and the
room was my
locker room
favorite.
shut down when we were dating, and I had gotten I knew everybody's there.
Mhm.
It's like oh man,
It
I
was-
love
it
that
was my
place.
I love that place
I have
too.
so many funny stories. This I don't know if I want to save it, but my girlfriend, we were like super hammered at the locker room, and this guy had a Keep Calm and Chive on shirt, and I was like super into that at the time. So I was like, oh, and she's like, yeah, that's Cricket. So
That's the nickname of the guy.
yeah. So he's like, that's Cricket over there with the Chive on shirt. You should go. I was like, hey man, and the whole point of Chive on is like buy people beers, do stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So I went over there. I was like, what's up, Cricket? Let me buy you a beer, dude. And come to find out, he's like 20 minutes. And then I go back to Nicole, and she's like, I don't think I know that guy. I'm like over there. I'm like calling him Cricket. And he's probably like, what
He's
the
probably
fuck
like,
is going
oh, he keeps buying me drinks. So okay.
I know you're Cricket. And probably was like, what? And then I was like, buy you a beer. He's like, okay.
Okay. Yeah. You call me whatever you want. You can buy my drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get ready to get started because
All
I feel
right.
like we are talking out a lot of the good stuff
I
before
know,
the
it
podcast
always-
even starts.
Are we gonna talk parenting hacks?
That's something we can talk.
I just think that's
You bring it
definitely
up.
like
I got it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Some
I got a
things.
couple.
Yeah.
Like Valium and vodka.
I can't wait to hear.
I know. I'm ready.
what
I'm
you got
ready.
going on now, Mom. Because
Let's do it.
all right. Welcome to Juice in the Morning. We had a good night last night doing the Smugcast podcast. So Smugcast podcast, I guess that's a little redundant. But with me today, as usual, is Shane. How are you doing today?
Good, man.
You feeling a little tension in the room?
No tension. No tension here, my friend.
All right. And today we have with me, since the 50th episode, this is Mom's second appearance. Or did you do more than one? I think you did too. This
Okay.
is your
Yep,
third
This
episode.
is number 3.
So my
Almost a
mom,
veteran.
Robin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Your voice sounds good on there.
All right. I like it.
And then also with us today from the Blonde on Brunette YouTube channel, Jess Hooker. And I forgot to mention on the last podcast, you were doing a podcast as well.
I am. I'm doing Not Terrible with Jess Hooker, and it's actually
Not terrible.
it's not terrible. Yeah, regardless of the shit show going on in my life right now, I try to find some kind of silver lining, and it's actually not terrible. So that's the premise. Is I'm just kind of sorting out my own life, and I'm being very transparent and honest in the struggles right now, and I'm also sharing other people's stories, and so yeah.
And when listening to it, it's like it's one of those things. Like a lot of podcasts, you know, they want to turn it up to like your personality to 10, basically, and like you want to be almost like a character.
I've done the opposite.
But that's so deep, and like it's really it's
Yeah.
one of those things that like when I go to listen to it, I'm like, I got to take time to like sit down and actually listen to this. I can't just listen to this on my drive to work,
Right.
because this is something I want to hear. It's just
is.
really good. I
I appreciate that. I appreciate that because I got my start in terrestrial radio, and I did the Chick McGee Show podcast for the last 5 years. I do Blonde on Burnett, which is actually just a drunk shit show. So this is actually like a stream of consciousness type podcast where I just kind of share what I'm experiencing and what's going on.
Probably
in the moment.
nice for you to know that you're not the only one going through those things, as well as other people that are listening, or you're going through it, so they're able to kind of resonate.
Very
with that.
possible, yeah, and it's interesting too. I don't try to be too specific in my struggles, but I've had a lot of people come back and go, "Oh my gosh, this I identify with this because,"
Yeah.
and I'm very grateful for that because I don't want to go, "Hey, this is why my life's falling apart," and but I try to just be like, "Hey, this is what I'm experiencing," and I try not to do a lot of show prep for this. Mostly because I'm lazy. No, I'm just kidding. But I just because I feel like it's a little more authentic, and that's the avenue I want to take right now. I want less production value and more just sincere and honest.
It's
and
impressive to hear that you don't have it, because
I don't.
Because
Yeah.
when I did that, I still get made fun of because my very first I was just like, "This is Juice in the Morning. This is a podcast that I've been doing for."
I think it was solely based on the monotone of your voice. Like, I don't think it was anything. It didn't have anything to do with
Which
your notes.
was weird because that's not you at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah,
I think he was
it's-
just,
I was
like-
nervous. I
Yeah.
didn't know what
Yeah.
to say. I've told this before. It was like Ricky Bobby. Like I felt like I didn't know what to do with my hands, and I just was like, I don't know what to even talk about.
Well,
Sure.
honestly, dude, you were by yourself and you were working, and
Yeah.
and
That's not easy to do. To be into a microphone by yourself
Yeah.
and carry on like that conversation like between your head and your mouth.
Yeah.
I know that sounds silly, but if you've talked
No,
into a
it's difficult.
microphone alone, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
From here to here, that's a
you-
legit
You
conversation.
think you have all these great ideas, and you can't get them out of your mouth.
well, it's like the whole started from the bottom. Now, I mean, like, I
Yeah.
don't really
Oh,
like that
yeah.
quote very much, but it kind of
When it applies, it applies, and
yeah.
you get it. Yeah.
And you did this in the beginning by yourself, and then like look now where we are.
Yeah,
with,
and
like,
it's so much more. I feel when I look back on things, I'm like, man, this is like so much more than what I thought it was gonna be. Like I've invested more than I thought I was
we're
going
only,
to.
Right.
only going up from here.
Yeah. But today I brought you guys on because Shane is a parent. You're a parent. You're a parent. Jen and I want to be parents eventually. But I thought I was really excited about this because my mom, you had me, and then 15 years later, you had my little brother and sister. So I think you have a very interesting perspective. And then Jess has a very interesting perspective with her children as well. How many do you have? And
I have
ages.
you and I identify a lot. We realized like you said, listen to you, and I feel like I identify with you and where you grew up and all these things. And then I found out that you're the oldest and there's a 15-year age gap, and I'm the oldest and there's a 15-year age gap, but there's also a couple in between too. But my son is 14 years old and my daughter is 12 years old.
And before I go any further, your son's doing a podcast as well, isn't he?
Yeah, my son has a podcast
That's freaking awesome.
called Don't Be a Dick. Yeah.
Awesome.
And we were brainstorming about names, and he said, "Mom, I feel like you inspired me to do this. And every time you leave the house, you say, 'Don't be a dick.'" And he said, "So I feel like that's appropriate." So he's he's actually, like, as you can imagine, like school and sports and
Yeah.
other things get in the way.
For
So
sure.
he said he's really going to concentrate on it more this summer.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
That's awesome.
it's a great premise, and I can't imagine, like, could you imagine sharing growing up, like
Well, I was just going to
having those
say
conversations?
how cool it would be when I was thinking about applying this to when I was in high school,
Mhm.
and how you always have your friends over, and you have like the, you could be like, hey, you want to come over after school today and do this? And you have all these different people that you could kind of like shoot the shit with, and it could even be like a
Mhm.
popular thing at your school, like, oh, you're the kid that does the podcast. Or whatever.
Exactly. That's what's happened. And there, he's like, everybody keeps asking to be on the podcast. And I was like, you never turn down a guest.
No.
Like, even if you think they're terrible, you're going to learn something from that experience, and you need to do
Yeah,
it.
I think it's super cool. Like, it's weird to live in a world because, like, when you think about me and you in high school, that this would never would have been a thing,
Right.
and it's just kind of a cool outlet.
Isn't that nuts that it's a complete medium that never even existed before?
And what I wanted to do, like in high school, was like I wanted to be on the radio or something. Like
Same boat,
I grew up listening to the Bob and Tom
Well, when
show.
I was 13, my dad, I begged for a video camera.
Yeah, you
begged, and I like Jackass and all that stuff was super popular. So me and my buddy Mark and some other people would do like little stop motion things with action figures.
That takes so long.
But it was so funny. If you do it right, it's hilarious. We did like Legos, and they're like doing the robot and stuff. And then we did like little stunts and like
the robot's probably the easiest one to do.
It was,
too,
yeah. But we have all these videos, and it just like that was our medium when we were kids. And like I'd have like buddies over, and we'd like rewatch the ones we made and like make new ones. And like I don't know, that was just fun at the time.
Yeah, and Shane also I feel like has an interesting perspective on the parenting side of things because you're like kind of a newer dad.
Really, I feel like I've been a dad for a while, but I don't know. Maybe that's just the stress of it.
And so do you just have one child? I'm just saying this for the listeners because I know.
As far as I know, I have the one. Her name is June, and she's a 3-year-old.
What's her
Great
name?
name.
June.
June
Harper.
And
Oh,
she's
that's
hilarious.
wonderful.
She's one of the funniest kids.
My last name is Jones, so it's June Jones.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
great.
Like Junie B.
Yeah,
Did you know about that?
I did. I found out real quick.
But that's
June Bug. We called her Bug for a long time, and now she goes, "I'm not a bug.
Aw.
I'm June."
Aw.
So,
yeah, we call ours is Addie Bug, so we have an Addie Bug too. Yeah.
See, it's always like bear or bug or
But yeah, June is hilarious. She's a tiny individual, but she has a lot of personality.
She does have a lot of personality.
She's awesome. But so the first thing that I wanted to ask you was how do you feel like it is different raising, oh, I didn't ask you. Go ahead and give the kids that you have besides me.
Okay. Well, I have 15-year-old twins, and I am so excited now that I can tell them that somebody else tells their kids not to be dicks.
Yes.
Because mine are always like, nobody else talks to their kids that way.
I don't think it'd be appropriate for me to tell my daughter. Don't be
You can tell her, don't be an asshole. I do that too.
Yeah, I was going to say, but you'd be surprised at how much like a toddler girl can be a dick.
You're going to figure that one out.
Shane's seen it firsthand.
We call it, we kind of PG call it sassy right now.
That makes sense.
I'm
That
sure
makes
it's going to transform into you're kind of being a dick.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I have you.
Yep.
And you are, going to be 31, which is crazy. I know I don't say
wow.
that on air, but it's true.
No, so, and that's what, like, the very first thing I wanted to talk about when I thought of this, driving in my car like usual. I've told this on the podcast before. I'll think of something and I'll put it in my phone as like a note. And then I kind of like flesh out the idea. And my first thought was like, I want to hear what you think about what it was like raising me, 15 years ago or 30 years ago, as opposed to raising the kids now, since the advancement in technology, what we've already talked about with like doing the podcast and be able to like access stuff so easily. Is there a huge difference, or is it kind of similar?
It's a huge difference. And I think that, just I could talk for hours because a lot of the things you guys have touched on have hit me recently with the creativity, the outlets that kids have. Social media and that kind of thing, I think, kind of boxes kids in. It can box kids in, but then it can really open things up too. And, your brother, Giancarlo, has some friends that do short movies. And I know he has friends that do podcasts and do the gaming streaming stuff that
The
they
Twitch.
do. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then, even aside from that, I've been, your sister did that drawing that I put on Facebook the other day that amazed me.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
she pushed me to buy
we're-
those art supplies. I'm like, I'm going to go spend $20 and she's going to get pissed and she's going to draw stick people. And then I'm going to be really mad. And she cracked out this amazing drawing that, it just blew me away. And then when I posted it, a lot of my friends started posting pictures that their kids were doing. And it was really strange to me. I thought, I wasn't.
They want to get some of that spotlight.
Well, not only that, but I think that there is so much untapped. And I think that the immediacy of being able to do a podcast or, put these YouTube videos out and stuff, it's so different now for kids. They have an outlet to put things out there, and it can be good and bad.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's your job to point them in the right direction when it comes to social media and stuff.
I think it's our job to catch the fuck up. Like, I don't even know what's happening.
I would just say, as a
So
parent,
true.
I'm relatively caught up. I feel like
You are, not me.
But I would just say that, I think along the lines of what you're saying is social media can be used as a very positive thing as long as you're pointing it's easy for them to go the wrong way when it comes to social media. But if you make sure and give them direction, and it can really open up some really cool avenues when it comes to being artistic and all kinds of different things. So
and talk about it.
Oh yeah,
because that's
for sure.
the thing. Because they see weird stuff.
Oh yeah,
So
And
true.
So, the
true.
opportunity to talk about it. I think if you just let them get lost in it, then they're judging themselves against things that they feel like they can't measure up to. But if you use it as an opportunity to talk about what they're seeing and what's out there, and because I literally am clueless, I don't know. I don't put limits on stuff that I should.
yeah.
Sorry
What
for
it-
people who are listening to me out there,
Ah.
but
It is crazy the things you see on. Imagine a kid scrolling through their, seeing videos of people being robbed and killed, and I've seen some really graphic things just on my Facebook feed. So I can imagine if a kid was going through that. There's not. I don't know. Is there a way to limit what they see through their Facebook feed? Or
I don't know.
There's a way to limit. I think it might be called Safe Eyes or something. I don't know, something eyes, but it basically, and I haven't used it yet, but it was suggested to me that all I have to do is tell my kids hey, every day I get a report of every site you visited.
Yeah.
And that's my thing is that I don't ever want to remove free will.
Yeah.
I just want to teach you to be able to limit yourself and to know the boundaries and know that things you can go into a rabbit hole and you're going to see things that you're never going to
And I
unsee.
definitely think there's something to be said about
Yeah.
doing it. And
No, I
gonna
shut
talk
it
about
down and you
are you
can't
gonna
see
talk
any
to
of it.
Black Mirror?
That's exactly what I
I just
was
read your mind.
I was like, dude, this sounds exactly like Safe Eyes sounds exactly like a Black Mirror episode.
Yeah, my
Mirror
son
episode.
watches this. Okay.
So this Black Mirror episode, parents have the ability to
He told me
shut
about this
shut
one.
off. If kids see
Yes.
anything that's stressing them out, it
So
blurs
she gets
it out
an
to where you
implant
can't
in
see
her
it.
eyes,
Yeah.
and basically this lady has what would be like this,
Mhm.
and she can see what her daughter's seeing,
Mhm.
and she can also
Edit it.
if
Yeah.
something's bad. This dog was barking at her whole life while she walked by, and the dog was just a blur because
So then it wasn't barking, so she wasn't scared of it anymore because the first time she passed by it, she actually saw it and
And
it freaked her out.
it's
which
someone-
is an interesting idea
Yeah.
because I think that kids today are under so much more stress than
Mhm.
any of
Well, that's
us
what-
ever were.
and that's what. But that led to what I was thinking about this situation is I was talking to them before you got here. I know that you did parent me. I know you were a parent, but I'm just saying
It's gonna get real, isn't
but
it?
I don't remember I don't think of things that were specific that I was this molded me that you did, and I don't and that's because I lived it. You're the parent, so what is the difference in that with raising me back then? What was some of the what was the struggles or the stresses at the time? What was the things that I think maybe I was worried about, but I don't think about it anymore.
I think because with you, I was a young parent, and you were just this amazing, just ball of potential, and I was terrified that everything that you did, every choice that you made, or if you made a bad choice, that it was all just going to be terrible. It was going to just ruin your life. And so, I was always trying to keep you from making bad decisions. And, you know, but really, it's an endurance race. It's not a sprint with kids. And learning the lesson that it's so frustrating as a parent that your history and things that you've been through mean nothing to your kids. Like, you want to try to impart that wisdom to them. They don't believe you've ever, I can remember that when you told me, I don't even remember, you were a teenager.
I actually remember this.
You were like, you know what? You just don't understand because you've always done the right thing. You always were perfect. And I'm like, I had you when I was just turned 18. I was pregnant my senior year in high school. So probably I did some things that weren't okay. But, but to you, I mean, you just had me on this pedestal as your parent. And so it was hard to really, get in there and convince that I had any kind of street credit at all.
I think it takes time because I didn't appreciate what my parents have done for me until I was probably like 20.
Yeah.
And I started really realizing that, like, man, they've really guided me through a lot of shit. And like, I wouldn't be the person that I am today without them. But when you're a kid and stuff, you're just like, I know, like, you just think you know everything.
Do you think nowadays with children that with the access to all the social media and everything like that, that they don't, and I keep acting like I feel like I'm an old man, but they don't look up to their parents as like, man, these people are like, because I thought like everybody that was an adult in my family, I was like, they're just the best at everything. Like they're like my Uncle Kevin and Aunt Laura. Like I was like, they're the coolest. I want to be them when I grow up. And
I think kids still do that.
I do too.
But I think that they're at least from talking to your brother and sister, they're afraid they can't achieve it.
Oh.
They're hearing the negativity and the media and watching the news and everything. And they see the people in their family that are high achieving and they think that it seems like an impossible task to get there. So I think that they still have a lot of the same feelings, but at least what I see with them is they're just afraid and uncertain how to make it happen.
Do you think that that's because the conversation between family has kind of decreased a little bit? Like in those moments, I know that I grew up with an aunt and uncle that I aspired to be like as spouses. I remember that, and I spent a lot of time with them just because they didn't have children till later on in life, and so they really embraced their nieces and their nephews. So I wonder if kids, because also these devices stop conversations.
Yeah.
They don't start conversations anymore. And I feel like if they engage those family members that they aspire to be, that it would be more attainable, that they would go, oh no, listen. I remember when, I got 2 D's on my report card in the 8th grade and my parents beat the holy hell out of me, like just more things. Like I just feel like these are, I tell my kids, these are your spirit stealers. Like put them away, put them in the box, because I feel like you act like a giant asshole when you've been staring at that screen too long.
Yep.
And B, I don't get to talk to you. Like that's my problem with devices, is that I miss out on that conversation and getting to know you each day, or even the things that have happened to you at school.
My twins do not. I don't know what the deal is.
They don't mess with phones.
That's awesome.
My daughter doesn't like to be on her phone.
That's awesome.
I don't really know how that happened because it wasn't really on purpose.
Yeah, it's not like
But neither of them really spend that much time on it, and we do talk a lot.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of what's going on in the world right now.
I think they talk to you more than I did.
I don't know. You and I had a lot of car conversations.
I'm just saying, like
You
when
read
I to their
yeah, there was a lot. Like I would try to talk to you about important things to a certain point, and you'd be like, "Okay, that's good.
We're good.
I don't want to know anymore." That's good. I will ask you any more information.
We have devices I keep in a safe space through the week. So you get devices on the weekends, and that's it.
I've had to, in just my own personal life with Jen, like we'll be there watching TV and we'll have like 2 or 3 hours go by and we never looked up from our phones and like didn't even talk to each other. And it's like, I've had to like tell Jen, and I've told myself, like, I'm turning it off and I'm putting it in my bedroom.
Nicole and I get in
And-
arguments where it's like,
Mhm.
you've been on your phone, and he's like, what about when you were on your phone? Like,
Uh-huh.
we're just arguing about both of us were on our phone.
Uh-huh.
And then it's like, gets to the point where it's like, well, you were on it longer. And I'm like, well, let's stop this. Both put our phones down. We're both equally as bad. And let's just hang out. Because
So-
we get to the point where like some days, like I don't have any desire to be on my phone. I do I read my phone like a paper, like in the morning, like
Yeah,
someone would read
right.
the paper. I go through my
just
stuff.
Scroll, yeah.
And then I'm done for the day. For most of the day,
That's good.
And then at night, right before I go to bed, I do it again.
Sure.
That's kind of how I do it. But she's more
I
of
can
like
tell because he never really texts me back very quickly. It's always
Yeah.
a wait.
I'm also
Well,
a
it's funny
very
'cause
busy person.
People expect like an immediate response from
Oh,
you.
that's
That's something
what
I
I'm a
see
terrible person,
different.
and I do.
that's a very bothersome thing because I heard someone say once, like, no, this is a convenience for me. It's not
Yeah.
a convenience for you
That's
in
a
my
good
life.
point.
Like, you don't get that.
Well,
That's
and what
not-
about the people that are like, I know you read it and you
Well,
didn't
that's
answer
what I
back? I'm
think-
like, whoa.
I think that's what he's talking about is like a lot of times I'll read his message
Mhm.
and then I'll like
I'm very bad at forgetting,
But,
and then I
like,
put it in my.
I'm
Yeah.
always either I'm in class,
Mhm.
at home doing some kind of thing, or driving, or at work serving. And a lot of those situations I'm not able. But then it gives me a chance to think about what you said. A lot of time you're bouncing information off of me,
Yeah.
Right.
and it gives me a chance to like think about where you're coming from instead of just like. Because I am busy, so I don't want to be like, yeah, that sounds good, let's do it, and then
Yeah.
like, so it gives me time to read it,
No,
think
that's-
about
and
it,
I-
and then come back to it.
That's something I appreciate because I am the opposite. Like I'm the first person to like respond and not think about
Knee-jerk,
what I
yeah.
said. And then like I'll have agreed to something that I don't. This happens all the time with Jen and I. Well, she'll ask me something in person, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds good.
Oh.
And then completely forget about it. And then like 2 weeks later, hey, we're doing this, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
ah,
Nicole's like, I have cards on Thursday night. 2 weeks later, she's like, I gotta go to cards tonight. I'm like, babe, why would you not tell me? I told you, and you didn't
We're
listen.
bad.
What is your girlfriend's name?
Let me scroll back.
Nicole.
Nicole.
Yeah.
I have cards on Thursday. I was like, is she in my card club? And I
It's
don't
not.
know it. No.
It's euchre.
Yeah. What? No, we always say we play cards, but we end up just
Just
eating
kidding.
and gossiping.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it does nothing to do with cards.
So
at
what I
all.
think is interesting though is like all the different, because like you're kind of getting me thinking about how I'm gonna tackle this when I get. She's not, because I'm in a place where I don't have to worry about any of that stuff
Mhm.
yet. And my favorite thing that people say, this is a sarcastic, is that people are always like, "Oh man, you're in trouble,"
Yeah.
because she's.
Thank you.
I do have a cute little girl,
Yeah.
and she does, and like everyone's just like, she's a girl, she's pretty, and you just have to worry about all this stuff. I was
Yeah.
like, she's like, when are you gonna start worrying about that? I'm like, when she starts asking about boys and all.
Mhm.
I don't know how to
We'll
tackle
cross
it.
that bridge when you come to
Pretty
it.
much, but I don't want to even think about it until I
Mhm.
get there because it's like stressing me out already.
and maintain our innocence. Like you don't have
Yeah,
to
yeah,
push that. Yeah.
Exactly. And what I'm kind of focusing on now as a parent is just keeping her away from like negative stuff. I feel like
Mhm.
that's a full time, like when we're out and about and she's like, we walked and this lady was like a homeless person or something, and she was shouting
Mhm.
and like just saying the F word and yelling all this stuff. I immediately grabbed her, picked her up, and like walked pretty fast to the car. But there's just a lot of like kind of weird craziness going out there. I get this like feeling I never had before when I was single and didn't have any kids and stuff. It's like I get this eerie feeling of like all this like I have to protect
'Cause you have
her.
a mission.
Yes, I have to
Yeah.
protect her from negativity. I even have bad dreams about like
Mhm.
what I mean, I go to sleep at night thinking like, what if this happens? What if that
Yeah.
happens? And like she's just so tiny and innocent. All it takes is you hear all this stuff on the news about.
Yeah.
It takes 1 second for someone to do something that
Snatch
could
up
change
and-
her for
yeah.
the rest of her life. So
Exactly.
But you can't be afraid of,
Ah.
because that's, and I'm sorry, I'm
No,
interrupting.
go ahead.
But
No, go.
something I've been telling my daughter recently is that, and I feel like I'm different with the younger two than I was with you. And it goes back to the being afraid of them making mistakes, is they're going to do stuff.
Yeah.
They're going to do stupid things. And you want them to do that when they're in a safe
Right.
time in their life
Well,
where
my-
it's not going to,
Yeah.
and you're obviously got a younger one, but they need to fail
Well, I've
and
kind
they
of
figure
decided
it out.
that my plan is to instill the right information in her,
Mhm.
give her good morals and a strong moral grounding,
Mhm.
and let her make decisions on her own and just kind of be there to like, catch her when she falls and kind of stuff like that, but not be the person that, because I've seen that blow up in parents' face so many times when they're like,
The helicopter parent.
yeah, you're going to your room and you're not going to do this. And And when I was a kid, it kind of happened with me. My mom would like ground me all the time, and I would find ways to go out and do what I wanted anyway. So
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those things.
I know it's kind of a double-edged sword, but it's like the spanking thing. That's still a big thing. And I know I was spanked as a kid. My brother was spanked as a kid. I'm pretty sure my siblings that are 11 and 15 years younger, they weren't spanked.
Well, we did it, and then where she just
It
didn't work.
It wasn't helpful, and that was the
anything.
experience with both my kids. And I took it as they are individual people, and it might work with one and not the other. It literally did not work with either of them. So I would sit down and I would look them in the eye, and we would have a conversation at whatever age level they were. We would have a conversation, and I would say, "Why did you do like what?" However it came about, like I value what you think and your opinion, and that's another thing. Like I know growing up for me, my parents were. My mother was 16 and my father was 20 when they got pregnant with me. They were children themselves, and that like grew up together, kind of.
We did.
Yeah, like it's true. Like you grew up together, and I just remember not feeling like I had a voice as a child, and I always wanted my kids. I wanted to go. I value you and your opinion, even if I think that it's wrong, I'm still going to listen to you because it's how you feel in this moment. And whatever it was that happened to me as a kid and in those experiences, in those situations, I never felt like my voice was valid.
Yeah.
And that was so important to me. And I also remember being a little girl. I had long, beautiful, dark hair, and I would and I was a hula dancer, and they would hire us to go around town and do these different events to be a hula dancer. Like I said, I'm Italian, but I looked Pacific American, so I did these things. And so people would come up to me all the time and say, "You're beautiful, you're beautiful, you're beautiful." And my father would just like be very proud that I was beautiful. And I remember, okay, so my value lies in how I look.
Yeah.
Well, here I am 36 years later, and I'm in therapy going, "Oh, wait, you mean my weight and how long my hair is and whether I have makeup on? That doesn't define me?" Like,
yeah.
So I'm just saying, so I have two little nieces that are babies now, and instead of going, "You're so pretty," I go, "You're so smart.
Right.
You're so smart." That's the first thing that I say, because it's here I like almost 40 years old, and I'm still dealing with those things. Right. And it wasn't the fault of my parents. Like, it wasn't purposeful. You know what I mean? Like, I love being in front of people. I loved dancing, and I still do. But there's these conversations and these little things that kind of that don't quite filter through, that end up being that ugly voice in the back of your head going, "You're not good enough because you don't look like this, or you didn't do this, or you didn't accomplish this," or and that's the goal, is for my children to know their self-worth.
And that actually, when you say the conversations, that leads me to like one of the things I wanted to ask is like, have you had to have any uncomfortable conversations with your kids yet? I know, Shane, you probably really haven't had to deal with that all that much.
Not really. It's mostly having uncomfortable conversations with people in public.
Yeah.
Telling them like, I don't know. Like people get a little too comfortable with like the touch, like,
They do.
And it's like
I love you, man.
It's a 90-year-old woman, and she'll be like, "Oh, you're so adorable," and I'm like, "Gotta go, like, please." Yeah, and this is why he's talking about why he loves me, because I'll tell her to stop. I'll
Don't
be like,
touch my child.
I go, "Hey, I'd appreciate it if you didn't do that," and they're like, they look at me like I'm crazy, but I don't care. You don't know me or my daughter, and I don't care if you're a nice, sweet little. Don't touch my daughter. I'm very like way more observant now. Like, I watch people, and I always sit. I'm maybe a little paranoid.
I think so.
But I sit, facing the door so I can see everything, because just people are weird, man. You don't know who someone is behind a closed door. They can be the nicest person in the world. That doesn't, as soon as that door closes behind them, they turn into another person. So that's, what I'm struggling with right now, is just making sure that I make decisions for my daughter that are going to keep her safe. Yeah. And that's pretty much, I haven't hit the part where I have to like lock phones and ground people and take, and have conversations with her. I do kind of what you were saying, is I'll sit down with her and I'll get real personal and up in her face and say, "Listen to me. You have to do this because of this." And I'll always go, "Do you understand?" And then she'll go,
"I've witnessed."
"Well, Dad, I'll go, do you understand? And she'll go, yes. And then, because I want her to really understand the word, what I'm saying, because she instead of just kind of. But that's the only thing I've really had to when it comes to.
I think that's wise. I still do that with my kids. I'm like, I do this, and they know eye contact. Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Yeah.
That's what I say, and it's like this is, and I've said this is a verbal contract. You're saying that you understand, and if you don't do what we just discussed, then A, you're being disrespectful, or we have a bigger issue.
Yeah, it's easier to reason with when they get older, and like you're saying, you're making a contract with her. Her attention span is so all over the place, so it's really hard to get. I'm like, focus for a second, listen to what I'm saying, and because she'll, she doesn't get the reason behind a lot of things.
Right.
Why can't I do this? And I'll stop and be like, here's why. You can't have cookies all day because you'll get sugar bugs in your teeth and your teeth will fall out. I tell her that
hey, that's true.
Yeah, because you have to understand. You're talking to a 3-year-old; they don't understand. Like, you're gonna get cavities and then you get a plaque on your teeth, and like they don't understand that. So you got to kind of like
speak at their level.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So have you had to have any uncomfortable conversations yet?
Yeah. We've so I just to clarify really quick. My son is 14 and he looks like he's 18 or 19. So that invites some different things, maybe even older girls that are attracted to him. And that's been a situation. And then my daughter, who is 12, she's in a special needs situation. She has refractory epilepsy that has caused severe brain damage to where she has reverted back to like a first grade kindergarten level. And so we have those very when you have a daughter, your brain just operates different. And then when you go to that place of a special needs daughter, the increasing the ability or the likelihood of you being abused or something happening increases substantially. Like we're talking about like between 50 and 70% the chances of you being a victim of sexual abuse. And so this is a girl that is maturing into a teenage body, but we have to explain it on a kindergarten, first grade level. So we've had some really hard conversations. There's an American Girls book series that explains like mother daughter, like this is how our bodies are the same, and this is how your body's going to change. So there's been a big learning curve. We had a special needs situation in our family. We've been very fortunate that all the kids in our family have been very healthy. So to be the mother of a special needs child and then to explain to an entire family what that means has been very, very hard. So it's not just the conversation. It's children are wonderful when it comes to these situations. Yeah. Adults are fucking morons sometimes. And they have, and they have, I don't know what makes them enabled to experience empathy either on the level of my child or the level of me as a mother, but it's infuriating.
You got to play to the crowd a little bit. Like you go to a situation and so this is what that people don't do that kind of bothers me. And I'm not in your situation, but I would assume when you go around a big group of people, not acting, okay, maybe you don't understand what's going on and but chill, like kind of
just observe
to your crowd and realize what you can and can't do until you figure out a good a
response
plan and don't just start doing whatever you normally do because that's not fair to. And
it's so true. What you're saying is exactly true. That people just immediately. We live in a society right now that people immediately are like, can I record this? Can I get hits? Like, what can I do with this? And that's honest. But also we live in a time where like the generation before me, like that thing about that, like using the retarded, using the word special needs, using the words differently abled, there's just like this whole thing. I grew up in a time where we said, that's gay, you're retarded.
Yep.
And now we have to tell our siblings and the people that grew up with us, like, hey, by the way, like this, like we're not comfortable with the word retarded anymore. And that's, and I know that it doesn't come from a mean place, but it's also a chance to educate people.
Just as an adult, you should know
You should know. You would assume you,
Well, I mean,
you
like
should
we
know.
had this
You know
conversation.
your area.
We had this
You do.
conversation.
Yeah.
You may agree or disagree, but like when I'm listening to a comedian and they say those kind of things, I think it's funny. I'm going to be honest with you. But also
In the context,
because he's on that stage to be funny, and that's period.
Oh yeah,
So
like I don't take it personally.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So what I go, but I have a friend who works with mentally handicapped people. And I know when I walk around that person or I'm around that person, I don't say that word out of just pure respect for that person.
Right. Like, yeah, you're aware of your surroundings. And that's the thing too. Like, I don't take every situation. I was at a comedy show Friday night and the guy goes, "Hey, did you just have a fucking seizure?" Like, that's a direct quote. That's what he said to somebody.
Yeah.
My daughter has epilepsy. I'm not taking that personal. I get it. I know what you're doing. There are probably, like, if you knew the statistics, there's a lot of people in here who probably had seizures.
Right.
I'm not taking that personally. But if you're in our home and you say, "That's retarded,"
Yeah.
yeah, you know what? Then you're just kind of being a dick and you're not aware.
Yeah, and you're just unaware of your surroundings.
But as in that situation, yeah, we've had some hard conversations, not with our daughter, hard conversations with the adults.
Yeah.
The hard conversation actually right now with our teenage son is pornography. Like that's a very hard, it's not a hard conversation because as my father's son says, he was like, "Here's the line, here's your mother." Like she's going to jump over that line and she's going to take it because in my opinion, like we can't talk about this enough. And I don't mean that as in like, I don't ever want you to not feel comfortable talking about it with me. Like you need to have the verbiage and the respect to discuss it with your mother before you go on to another real life relationship and situation where you can respect your girlfriend and your wife and your partner.
Coming from a male though,
I was gonna say,
the access that they have to porn is
terrifying.
so crazy.
It's terrifying.
So what's your plan?
So my situation is that it's happened. It's happened. Like I would be bummed to think it wouldn't happen. No, it's not that. It's that this is what I think.
You need to explain reality.
Yeah, because I'm going to like everything that's happening to your body. Let's discuss that. And then I'm also going to tell you everything that's happening to a woman's body right now. Yeah. We're also going to discuss the rabbit hole that I talked about later. There's things you can go into and that you're not going to unsee and that can fuck with you for the rest of your life.
I would have to agree. I saw watching porn when I was young or whatever. I felt like I was going to watch it and you couldn't stop me. There was like, no, I mean, I'm just being honest. Yeah. And I saw a lot of weird shit, but I also needed someone there to tell me like, look, this is like, my mom sat me down and explained to me that like, yes, you're watching this, and yes, but this is not how you necessarily treat women.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is not what women are looking for.
That's so true. And that's been our situation is that I have said that you know what? I know you can watch this and you're like, damn, really? Boobies? Those are amazing. Like, I get that. I get that self-pleasure is a real thing. I get that you're going to get erections. And look, you're going to hear your mother say erections. Like, we're going to talk about all of it. And my thing is that as much as fun as this is to look at your phone or your device and be like, oh my God, look at all that. Nothing compares to being in love with a woman and sharing these experiences. Yep. Like, I need you to not become completely void of emotion when you do meet a real life woman and you see boobies in real life for the first time and go, I don't know what to do because I've only seen these on a screen.
But there's also something to be said about like when you're that age, you are just like
that's all you want to do. Yeah,
all I care about.
You think you invented masturbation? Yeah, you're like, does anybody know how amazing this is?
I was like upset. I mean, I feel like everybody my age, we like guys, we were obsessed with it. Like that's what.
Absolutely.
You're not old enough to be in love with someone or have any business thinking you're in love with someone, but you have all these hormones and these like sexual things, and you have to put it somewhere. Yeah. And I feel like if you don't, it's just going to cause frustration
and aggression in other places. I 100% agree. And that's why I said like everything that you're feeling and experiencing right now is 100% normal. Yeah. You're not abnormal. You're 100% normal. And self-pleasure is normal. But like going on the internet and having everything at your disposal like just using keywords and going, okay, I want to look at a blonde with big boobs and a fat ass, like all these things. Like that's what's not normal.
Yeah.
Like if you want to pleasure yourself.
Okay, this is a whole different thing. But
Yeah.
like even looking at people my age and being on like dating apps.
Oh yeah,
like
that's
there's
true.
one of very many guys who will act like that on what they're looking for.
Like that, there it's all
blonde,
physicality.
yeah.
Yeah.
Big boobs. I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay,
I wonder
actually,
what dating site my mom's on.
yeah. No, actually, this is plenty of fish. This isn't you porn. Like it's like you're getting your what? No, but I think that that's true, and I always tell my son like, I just need you to use this.
Mhm.
Like I don't doubt that you're going to do this, but two things: your mother and your sister live in this house, and you better have a little bit of fucking respect.
Well, it
There you
goes
go.
back to like what I said about instilling the information and then
Yeah.
so they can make the right decision when
Right.
when that time comes.
That's the thing too, is it free will? Like I'm not going to cut you off from the internet. I need to teach you how to have self-control and make good decisions.
That's like what I was saying is like
yeah.
if when I was a kid, if I wanted to see porn, I could see porn.
Yeah.
There's no you're not stopping me.
Mm-mm.
I'm gonna figure out a way to do it,
Mhm.
whether you like it or not.
Mhm.
So like giving them the right information and explaining
Mhm.
what all goes and giving them just a better understanding of what porn itself is and how it's
Yeah.
not a realistic view of how a relationship or sex goes.
Yeah.
That's what helped me realize that to separate the two.
Mhm.
So when it did come time to be in a relationship and I thought, I'm in love and all this stuff, I didn't take that along with me and go in the bedroom and be like, oh, I'm about to you like you like that? You like that? And all this, like,
Hey, I'm going to show you this video. Do your legs go back like that? Yeah, like things like that.
right.
Yeah.
I was always like, how flexible are you?
I brought up this like question because I remember, and you've already kind of touched on it. I avoided all of those conversations with you.
You did. And I
because-
think that is the answer. There should not be taboo conversations with your kids. It has to start early.
Yeah.
But because I know, like, seriously, I would try with you and you'd be like,
Uh-uh,
nope.
uh-uh.
No, and my thing was, and it was probably a bad move by me because I would just be like, "Yep, I understand that. Like, you don't need to talk to me about
And
it."
even
I've
if you
learned about
didn't,
in
you were
school."
like, Mom, we're shutting this down.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and I think that it may have like kind of like I don't know, messed with me at the time because like I just immediately assumed I knew everything, and I've
Right.
always been that way. I've
I
been.
think teenagers just do that.
Oh, but
Yeah.
to be honest,
I don't know,
I
we
still
have some
think
really
that to this
crazy
day. Like,
conversations.
I feel like I'm a very. I just feel like I know everything.
Well,
That might be a first child thing. To be honest, that might be birth order
Yeah.
because I feel like I do that too.
going back to those situations when I was with my friends and they were like, dude, have you seen like boobs? And like, we all didn't know really what was like everything. We didn't know everything, but I feel like I had a better handle on it and had a more realistic view
You
because
had a better hand.
sure.
Sorry.
No, hey.
But because of
I
those
set that up
conversations,
but I went into these situations knowing that like I knew what was like I saw this and was like, okay, I was categorizing things like, okay, this isn't, but then there was people that I knew, I had friends and they were just so like you were talking about boobs and like this is how this works, and I'm just like, no man, like
No,
I
that's
don't,
not it
I
at
feel like
all.
I had to I didn't have to have my mom there telling me every little thing because she just set a ground where I was able to like filter these things
Yeah.
that were coming into my life. And
do you remember ever going to her with something of
She usually-
sensitive nature or taboo and going, Ma, like I actually need you to break this down for me.
she usually had to get stuff out of me. Like, she like I Googled some stuff and she would be like,
Yeah.
hey, like, don't, and she would like go through that with me.
Mhm.
And she had caught, I never got caught doing anything like
Never
that, but
punish you, but instead make it a
just
conversation.
kind of give me some information on
Right.
what, if you're doing this, so this is what's going
This
on.
is
My
the
dad
situation.
never, ever told me anything.
Mhm.
I remember the very first, my dad used to have Easy Rider magazine.
Right.
That was the very first boobs I ever saw. Were
Right.
Easy Rider magazine.
But
and I
don't you
was
think that was such a simpler time? Like there have been moments where I've been in my room going, okay, how am I going to broach this subject with my son? You know what? Fuck, just buy him a Playboy and let him stare at that for the next 5 years and just be done.
With both of my boys, I actually caught you guys looking at stuff. Giancarlo will be just thrilled for me to be saying that on a podcast, but I caught you looking at stuff.
I don't remember that.
You don't remember that when you had your friend over and you had that,
and you're trying to close it.
Yes,
the computer's too slow because it's the 90s.
He was sitting at the computer, and there's this naked person hanging on the screen.
And I'm like,
what are you doing? He's like, nothing.
I was pretty
computers
slick.
are just slow.
I never got caught.
We had a really slow. It was a gateway. If you
I remember the gateway.
that was the cows.
our first home computer. Yeah.
So uncomfortable conversations. Have you had to have any recently?
I would have to say I try to think of them as not uncomfortable because I want them to come to me. I know they're going to screw up. I want them to feel comfortable calling me if they are at a party and drink, or their friends are drinking and they need a ride, or
I didn't feel comfortable with that with you until I was like 20.
I know. I want
and then I abused it for like 3 years.
Until the night I said,
no, you're not going to do this anymore.
But, I want them to ask me questions. I want to talk about things. I want them to have the real information, because it's crazy, even today with everything that's so available, that they still don't know the real information and the right information. And, I try really hard. I am the mom that is known for talking straight with my kids. And so they have friends who are like, man, I can't talk to my mom like that, but I can't talk to somebody else's kid about things because that's, their parents' job. But, I think you have to be that safety net, and there has to be respect, but I want to be the one who's giving them the information. And, I was an ER nurse, so I've seen more than my share of things that I feel like my kids need to know about.
Yeah.
So,
I've told it on the podcast before. My mom would always come home and be like, you guys aren't choking each other out, are you? Because kids are doing that to get high. And I was like, no, Mom, I didn't know that, but now I do. So maybe I'm going to tell some friends about it. Or like,
I remember that.
Or like, I think you even brought up like the duster thing where kids were like inhaling like the computer duster because it would it would get people high. And I was like, no, I didn't know that could get you high, but I do now.
Now I do.
But that leads to like the exact. I love how this is flowing, because that leads to exactly what I want to talk about was drugs and alcohol, because marijuana is becoming such a accepted thing. How do you broach that subject when it's recreationally legal in almost the entire country? And I've heard Dr. Drew on an Adam Carolla podcast, and I've heard him state that, at a young age, like getting super high is not good because your brain's still developing. But he's also, says the other medical benefits of it. Subject when, it's something that is so accepted. But then at the same time, it's not accepted.
Where do you want to start? You want to start with your mom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I know my friends are going to listen to this. I have never had a big problem. I don't smoke marijuana, but I've never had a big problem with it, and I've never wanted to make a huge deal over it. I don't want
Except
my kids.
Except for the one time that you drug tested me because I missed picking somebody up from basketball
It
practice.
wasn't just that. There were other things going on that I needed to know. You got to a point in time where we just weren't connecting, and there wasn't. You were not the same person.
Yeah.
And that was what concerned me. And honestly, like I said, marijuana doesn't bother me all that much. I was more concerned working in the ER with the new stuff. I'm concerned about the Juul stuff that kids are doing.
You have to tell me what that is. What is that?
That's a little, they like
a USB.
oils and stuff that they put in there.
So is it with, because we've had a lot of kids.
Vape.
Yeah. We've had a lot of kids.
It's like a little vape.
We had this conversation with our son about the vape pen, and my son Max just said, I'm nervous because I don't know what's in it.
Very smart kid.
Okay. I said, okay. And then his dad goes, well, everybody that uses a vape pen at work, we call those douche flutes. And so Max went to school and started saying, oh, you smoke a douche flute. And all the kids were like, what? And so he looked like some kind of hero because he had this goofy name for it, and like was
I'm
able
totally
to like
using that.
douche flute. Yeah, when you say douche flute, kids are like, Oh my gosh.
I do know a lot of people that are super into that.
To
Yeah,
be
no, I
appropriate,
agree.
I called it "You're second on a robot penis."
Yeah,
Oh, there you go.
But they're super expensive. Like they'll go
They
get
share
that,
them,
They're nuts.
and they get
which
these
is scary.
They're passing them
really
around. Yeah, it's cool.
expensive machine. Like it's
Yeah.
like
Yes.
this big, and it like
The
it
mod.
heats up, and it has all the like some of the flavors are like unicorn blood, and like really, and they.
I think it can be damaging to
So,
their lungs, and
That's
that
the thing is
scares
that
me.
it hasn't been around enough
That's
to do
what I
enough
was
testing to
just
know.
gonna say.
Yeah,
There's no
to
kind
know.
of
Yeah.
like
No
the long
research.
lasting effects that you don't, 20
We're
years
not a-
down the road. I've heard that whole popcorn lung thing, but I don't know how
Mhm.
true
I
that
don't
I've
know
is.
heard
if-
that
I
too,
don't
and
know
I
if
don't know
that's
if it
real.
is either. But
I
I
think
don't
anytime
know.
you're inhaling anything, you're
Yeah.
Foreign,
irritating
yeah,
the
yeah.
mucosa in your airway.
Mhm.
If you're there are
Yeah.
just too many
And
things
there's
that can
so
happen.
much more smoke involved with those things than there is actual like.
Cigarettes.
Because like,
yeah.
have you ever seen someone like
Oh yeah,
really
blow a giant cloud of
that?
smoke out
But
of
like you got to imagine all that thick smoke is
It's in
It's
just
your-
in there.
yeah, and you're
Yeah.
and they hit that thing way more times than you would hit any cigarette.
Yeah.
I just see
Exactly.
them
It's
over and over
constant.
and over.
I agree.
So so
agree.
so you're not so you're worried more about newer.
I'm worried
things.
about newer things. I'm worried about synthetic things. I'm worried
Mhm.
about I don't it's weird. See, it's interesting because you and I are weirdly kind of in the same generation
Mhm.
consideration. Like I'm at the upper end, you're
Mhm.
kind of in the middle end.
Right.
And then the twins, but I think me being in the upper end, I was still part of that group that we were kind of terrified of drugs,
Mhm.
because we were on the tail end of some of the
Reefer
heroin and
madness.
stuff like that happened. And that I feel like my twins are afraid of drugs and alcohol and smoking. And so it kind of feels a lot like I felt, but
Mhm.
I want to talk to them about it because I know the exposure is there.
Yeah.
And we try to talk about it a lot. And anything could happen. I always, just like I said, kids are going to make mistakes. I made mistakes. But it does, using substances does alter your brain when
Mhm.
you're especially when you're young
Yeah, and
and
it's
it's
still
still
developing.
forming.
Mhm.
And
It's crazy to me because I never ever thought about doing any kind of like hard drug ever.
Mhm.
To like even when I was like heroin or cocaine or anything like that, I've never like thought I should start doing this. Like I don't know if the whole
Right.
gateway drug thing is true, but I kind of got on the weed thing like later in life. Like I didn't start doing. I've always just like dabbled, never really been. But like in my like early 20s is when the first time I have ever done any of that stuff, and I was never impressed by it,
Yeah.
and never really did anything for me. So I don't know.
I want to be honest, weed really messes me up, like to the point that I get scared and like
It's just
paranoid
not
and
fun
stuff.
for me.
So
I
I don't
was-
enjoy it, so I don't do it.
When I was
just
like
don't.
19, I think I had some people over at my house, and I went into my mom's room, and all the drawers were open, and I was like, I was paranoid that someone that was at my house had been going through my mom's, and I went out and was like, everybody get the fuck out, like
Mhm.
blah. And I saw that it made me that way, and I was like, it just doesn't. It makes me sleepy and hungry.
it
and
definitely
tired.
did not chill you out.
But I will
No.
admit,
It
when
is different. It
when
really
I've
is
had,
based on your brain composition.
But I will admit, when I've had an edible before, like that was great.
Yeah.
I felt fine because
Yeah.
it's like a real slow, like it doesn't like
Slow
just
build,
make
for
you
sure.
super
Yeah.
like.
Well, I
high
had to
right
like,
now.
I've had to like stand up from the chair I was in to even really
Yeah.
hit me. You know what I mean? But it's just weird. Like I don't know what goes into. I've just what it was instilled in me to just never. I don't know if it's, but I hung out with people that have done cocaine.
I
and
had never seen anything more. I would say I've never seen heroin or anything like
Mhm.
that in person. Like I've never
I've
even seen it.
I've seen,
And I would never touch that because it's like
Yeah.
roulette. You don't
Yeah.
know if you're that
Yeah.
person. And, from what I've seen of heroin.
even with coke, kind of right.
Yeah.
You don't know what it's laced with or any
Mhm.
kind of.
But
I just-
heroin,
She's
that
talking
is-
about like
whew.
your response to it. Like,
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Everybody's brain composition is so different to those things. Like I just didn't mess with drugs, but
That's-
there wasn't drugs around when I was a kid. I'm gonna be honest. Like my parents weren't hippies. My parents were drinkers.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's my struggle. Like to be
Same.
completely honest, there was alcohol in our home most of the time,
Same.
and so that's my go-to.
Yeah.
And I'm
never
kind
thought
of
there was,
concerned. Yeah,
but there was. you guys
Well,
had
and I
stuff,
didn't
and I
drink.
just didn't know.
I didn't drink.
Oh, they just kept it out of eyesight.
So-
Oh, okay. Well, that's
We-
not bad.
And I never really, I don't know. I just never,
and
that was
that's
never
what I
something
just-
I would
thing.
remember
Yeah.
to buy.
It's
Like,
just funny
Yeah.
because I remember growing up and not ever really seeing it, and then we had like a Christmas get together or something, and then there was actually beer and stuff there when I was 21.
Okay,
and I was
time
like,
out. Was that after a grandpa died? Because that's when alcohol came, like, was very apparent. Like, we had a super churchy grandpa die, and then, like, everybody in the family was like, whoa, he's dead.
It started
Damn.
with
And they were like,
the
we're
poor guy.
drinking.
the,
Yeah,
when I started to notice it was when Grandpa had a Coors Light in Michigan, and I was like, I've never seen Grandpa drink ever.
Right.
And then I felt like then I noticed it because then I was starting, I think, to drink a little bit in high school and stuff like that. And I was
Sure.
like, now I see like people actually drinking beers.
You're
I wonder if I just
identifying,
didn't
yeah.
even notice it.
It was
And it
weird
was
for-
still going on when I was
well,
younger.
and I don't care for, and you know, I don't care for over drinking.
Oh yeah.
And so I
My 21st
Did
birthday
not.
when she went out with me and she was like, "You're gonna mix that with that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've been doing this for a little bit."
I enjoy drinking, but I don't enjoy being with anybody who drinks way too
yeah.
much.
Especially
I
when
don't
you're
like
sober,
to drink
I
way
can't
too
stand
much.
being
Is
around.
that not the worst?
I don't think I'm a buzzkill. I just don't
No.
like the
No,
when
I
you
think that
tip
that's-
that
Mhm.
scale.
But I'm saying myself as a sober person, when you're around
Right.
a bunch of drunk
Oh,
people,
yeah.
it's so annoying.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
sober right now?
Yeah.
Like, actively?
Yeah.
Like, not just today, right in this moment?
No.
Like, you don't drink?
Oh, I drink. I drink.
Yeah.
last night.
Oh, okay.
I'm
sorry.
talking about like times I.
No, I
When
know.
you're
Where-
sober
you know
with
when
a
you
group of
yeah,
people.
like when you show up to a party and everybody's been drinking
Already,
for 2
yeah.
hours, I'm like, fuck
Well,
you guys.
how
I'm
How am
outta
I
here.
ever going to
I
catch
usually-
up?
I
God.
don't even really like to go if it's
Yeah,
that
if you
bad.
don't, yeah.
I usually get off work at like midnight, and everyone's like, "Come later," and I'm like, "No," because you guys will all be hammered.
Shane
And
is
Yeah.
actually Shane
And you're
actually
actually
didn't text me
miserable
this
people,
week
yeah.
or last weekend because you're like, he's probably already drunk.
yeah, I saw
I
the,
don't even
the
wanna
message
go.
on Facebook said 2 hours ago, and I was like, "He's drunk."
No, I'm done. That's
But-
interesting. I
so
don't.
how are you broaching the subject of?
So our thing is, so we actually just, this is funny that you say this. We did a parent interview and it's something sent home from school and it says like, hey, ask your parents if you were 14 years old and you were with friends and they said, hey, we've got beer. Do you want to drink? What would you do? So it's basically like, it's a very easy way to say, okay, mom, dad, what would you say?
Mhm.
And, I said, I don't know what I would say because I was always so terrified of my father finding out that I was just like, no, like, you know, my dad, if we like, he'll kick my ass and your ass. Like, we're not drinking. That's what's going to happen. But I told my son, Max, like, he gets migraines.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, tell him you're on migraine medicine. And Max is like, I didn't even think about that. And I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, tell him you're on migraine medicine. You can't drink. If you drink, you're going to get a migraine.
Mhm.
Then you're going to be puking everywhere and it's
Yeah.
going to suck for everybody.
That's good.
It's
And he was
crazy,
like,
like the
"Oh."
the three different, because my dad was always like, I remember from being like 9 years old and my dad having me go get him beers.
Oh, yeah.
And then like tipping, he would get like, he'd have all his buddies
Yeah.
over playing poker or whatever.
Right.
And he'd like, go get me a beer. And I would like, I was by the
Mhm.
age of 10, I was popping caps off and
Yeah.
like giving them to him. And he would let me have a sip of his beer.
Mhm.
Like, this tastes like shit. I don't want,
Yeah.
But like, it's weird because I've always been around it, and my dad's
Mhm.
always been cool. Like, when I wanted to start drinking beer, he would let me drink beer. When I
Mhm.
was 16, 17 years old, my dad would like let me drink his beers at his house. I mean,
Your parents were divorced.
yeah.
How was your mother?
She
Like she knew, but she wasn't a ball buster.
like my mom came and got me. I talked about it last. She had to come get me from the Anderson police station because I was at a party and the party got busted, and I was the only one there that was 18 or 17, and I was getting ready to turn like 2 weeks away.
Oh.
And they took me to the Anderson, and she was super cool about it and just like didn't ground me, didn't do
It
anything.
happened. Yeah.
And kind of when I turned 17, my mom and my dad kind of just like let go, and like
Mhm.
you like my mom used to be really really hard on me. She used to like make me like write sentences when I would get in trouble,
Right.
and like I was
So where were you in high school when you turned 17?
like
Were you- No,
What
like
grade?
what grade? Sorry, what grade? What
Were you
grade?
junior, senior?
Because like
freshman?
I was
I
old.
think I
Like,
was a sophomore.
oh, okay, so I was a little bit older. Like I was 18 my entire senior
I was
year.
an older kid for the grade, so that would mean I was a sophomore. So like I was like one of the first people to get a car.
All
I was
three of
gonna
you
say,
were.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, but my birthday's in June.
Because I started
Yeah.
driving my summer after my freshman year.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I got
Same.
my license in
Mhm.
my sophomore
Same.
year.
Yeah.
And so it was the same. And so I feel like I knew I turned 18 my senior year. My dad's like, you're 18. Legally, there's not shit I can do for you.
Mhm.
Like, if you act stupid, you're on your own.
Mhm.
And that's I was raised by a single father.
Yeah.
You know what, though? I think that's so key to kids today. And that's the important thing I tell my kids
Yeah.
is you reach a certain point where you are a consultant.
Right.
Yeah.
You are no longer,
Yeah,
and
my
they
dad,
have to
that's
understand
exactly what my dad
they're
said.
in control. And I
Mhm.
think that is what a lot of kids struggle with, like high school students, college students, because their
My parents are
parents
gonna bail me
haven't
out.
let that
Yeah.
go yet
Mhm.
and
They're
said,
still trying to
you
control
know,
them when they're in a
yes.
different,
But
like
they're
they're in Muncie
done.
going
You
to
have
college.
no
or-
Yeah,
control.
once you're 18, like my dad goes, I can only give you advice.
Yes.
That's
I just
all
remember
I can do.
my mom being really like strict and hard on me about stuff, and then it's like one day she just stopped, and like
Nope.
we became a lot cooler. Like me and her
Right.
like actually became closer because I didn't go make like that was one instance where I had to go,
Right.
you know, and a couple other little tiny things with like, you know, drinking or whatever. But I was like, she felt like I was smart enough to make good decisions, and I really did for the
But
most
don't
part
you
make
think
good
that
decisions.
that don't you think that you knowing on some level that your parents had faith in you to make the right decision?
And I didn't want
It's
to.
empowering.
I didn't want to
instead of them
disappoint my
going,
parents.
yeah,
Yeah.
Right,
exactly. And
right.
and I still feel that way. Like I said, like I'm at the age that I am, and I would be really upset to disappoint my father still to this
My
day.
dad does this thing all the time where he'll be like, here's what I think you should do.
Yeah.
And then he's like, but do what you want.
Yeah.
And I usually almost always do the other thing.
Yeah.
And then he always,
And he's always right.
he is.
And then he's
And he
always fucking
loves-
right. They're
he-
always
He
right.
always loves to say, I told you so, which is
Right.
kind of
Right.
crude. But,
This thing.
Yeah.
but he definitely like, he tries to point me in the right direction to make the right decisions. And I remember calling him and I like had this new idea, like, I'm going to go do this. And he's like, I don't know if that's a good idea. And then I would go do it and it wouldn't be a good idea.
And then it would, yeah. And I
But-
feel like that happens every time with my father, like in my entire life. And even now, like at this age, like I still haven't learned, but in the moment, I'm like, he's telling me this and this is going to be right. And I'm going to do the opposite thing. And then I'm going to know. Like I've gotten further along in the process, so I understand. But my father would always say to me, don't do anything to embarrass yourself or me. I would leave the house, and that was what he would say. Don't do anything to embarrass yourself or embarrass me.
Mhm.
And there was a little bit of accountability. Fact that that's my father and I don't want to embarrass him, but he did always say, don't do anything to embarrass yourself.
Well, there's like a lesson within being told not to do something and then doing it anyways. You learned a lesson from that.
That's the free will part.
I've learned a lot of things in my life by doing the wrong thing.
Right.
So like it took a lot of time. Like my dad would say, I don't think that's a good idea, but I would do it anyways. And then I would learn that was a bad decision and not to do that again. Even though I did learn the hard way, I could have learned easily by just not doing it. But
you still have to. You still have to provide your children with the information. And I always say, like, think in facts when you're talking to your children, as emotional as you want to get. And I am an Italian mother, and there's times where my son is like, Mom, you're being extra Italian right now. And I'm like, you know what? Get the fuck over it. And I do. I say and I speak from emotion, and I do say that. Like, Max, I'm speaking from emotion right now. But time out, let me give you some facts based on this. And that's the thing, like with the drug thing, like I said, we have to tread very lightly because we're still in that moment, like marijuana could treat your sister's epilepsy.
Mhm.
Like, we don't want to abuse this recreationally, but it's also not our call to decide if somebody wants to use it recreationally. This is none of our effing business. However, like, we want to use this for good. And the good is that, oh my God, what if it could stop your sister's seizures? So like let's but that's the thing, like we talked about earlier. There's not enough information to know how it's going to affect her brain later in life in treating her epilepsy. We've done the CBD oil. CBD oil didn't work. We just canceled out the 13th pharmaceutical that has failed her at max dose. And now we're weaning her off of that. We actually don't have the option to use marijuana with THC in it in the state of Indiana. Yeah. And did you hear about this? So they did pass it for the we have the medical marijuana card that they issued here in Indiana. Literally something that you could make in your own home office. The laminator.
Yeah.
It's so kindergarten.
Dainty.
The cards that they sent, it's ridiculous. Well, does anybody have a card to carry, like a carry a weapon?
Business.
Concealed
No, like
carry.
concealed to carry. It's a joke, right? What they send you, the laminated piece of paper.
No, I don't have it. I have the actual.
I think his is a little bit more advanced.
Let me see. It's not the pink one. It is the pink one.
Yep, it's like an actual.
Oh no,
card.
you have a card. So
Yeah.
this is not what it is. It's literally a piece of paper.
It also,
laminated.
it
That's
also
laminated.
might be that way because this is a lifetime carry.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay, then
maybe
that's
if
different.
it was like not a lifetime, it would be they just give you the piece of paper
Right,
instead. But I
right.
think since they want me
Yeah,
to,
so the one that I have is just it's pink and it's a piece of paper and it's laminated.
Okay.
And so the white CBD oil, like which I think is a crock of shit because I don't even think that there is a registry.
Yeah.
I think that they knew that they were going to pass this and that the 3% THC and blah 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 blah.
Mhm.
I think that it was just it's just the backward shit that Indiana does.
Mhm.
And so my thing is that so now everybody can use CBD oil,
Mhm.
but this idiot, this senator that passed, did you see this amendment? They have to label CBD oil as a Schedule 1. It is same as heroin.
Wow.
CBD oil with
Yeah.
0.03% THC is the same as heroin.
coming from someone who I've eaten a CBD oil candy bar when I was in Colorado.
And it was just
It just
CBD or
makes you,
THC
like,
CBD.
It has no
Mm-mm.
effect on you other than it just makes your body feel like not good and like I'm high.
Yeah.
Like, do you just feel like
Relief.
I just feel better? I don't know.
Mhm.
But I didn't feel any kind of like
No.
oh, I'm paranoid or anything like
Mm-mm.
THC does because they're split. It's like THC and then there's CBD and like
And it's
they all have
very,
different.
very different. And it also depends on the makeup of your brain.
Yeah.
If you're someone with an addictive brain, like if you're going to have different effects and different experiences from the cannabis plant.
Mhm.
My daughter has a very massive brain malformation in her brain. She doesn't have the ability to get high from these types of things. And this is all medical research that I've read because you can go to a neurologist in Indiana and the last thing they're going to fucking tell you is how cannabis can be beneficial.
Right.
So I've had to do it all by myself. But my thing is don't abuse it
Mhm.
because it has the ability to be medicinal.
Mhm.
And that's the first step. And if you want to use it recreationally, and I'm with you, how do you tell your teenage kid, I'd rather you smoke a little weed in the basement than go and get drunk with your friends?
Mhm.
Well, I tell them to tell me, so and so has been smoking pot,
Right.
and I've told them about how it takes
I would
kind of
have
takes
never
away
told you that.
My son told
guys are
me, yeah,
crazy.
takes away their drive,
Right. Yeah.
And I talked to him about it. I'm like, yeah, I mean,
they're going to
you
end up
know,
being that person for the rest of their lives. If they're
maybe
not careful.
maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people that I think have been, very successful and do okay with it, but there is that potential there.
Mhm.
And, it's just not something.
Well, there's definitely two different kinds of like THC. There's like sativa and then the other one, which I can't remember, but one is more like an upper and one's like a downer. And like a lot of people don't necessarily know what you're getting
difference.
when you are smoking, especially kids. They don't
Right.
know what they're getting. So I remember in high school, I would go to a buddy's house and they would all be smoking pot, and I would just be like, "Man, I'm gonna go home, guys, because you're just sitting here. We're not doing anything. We're just
Right.
sitting around, and I'm watching you guys just
Yeah.
kind of." So I was like, "I'm out of here."
Yep.
But it's just not a lot of
What do they
Yeah.
call it? So it's sativa and I know it's
Indica.
indica.
Yeah,
And
indica
so-
is the upper. I think sativa is the downer.
And sativa is like sit in the couch. Like it makes you that's how I was always taught. Like
Yeah.
indica is the upper, like it'll
Yeah.
give you energy or like even change your thought process to make you really
Well, I know a lot of people that say if you smoke enough weed and you do it enough, you'll get like energy from it. You'll actually have the opposite effect. But I've never,
Never smoked enough.
like I said, I dabbled in my
Yeah.
my early 20s and just was not impressed with it. And
yeah.
I really have been trying to figure this out. What about me? What was instilled in me to not want to do other things? Because there's obviously people that anyone and if you go with it ended up getting addicted to some kind of drug or something.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's like I mean, I know.
Do you think it's a physiological thing? That's my question.
Well,
is
I know
that-
for sure my parents both did a lot of drugs when they
Right.
were I'm talking about
Hard drugs,
acid and
yeah.
stuff like that. And I just have never even wanted, I had no desire to do
Yeah.
that. And I want to know what it is why I'm like that way so I could try to do that with my daughter. Cause
Yeah.
I think that it's the same with any pharmaceutical. Like some people are going to react positively to it and other people aren't. I think that it has the same, it really depends on who you are. there's there's medication that I'm very sensitive to, and there's medication that my daughter is like. So is it genetic? Like,
Have you also-
is it hereditary?
What I
Like,
know
what
for
happens?
a fact about myself is anything that I take, any kind of anything, hits me really hard, no matter what
Well, I
it
was
is.
just gonna say, like, I've never been the type of person to like. I don't even like taking Tylenol if I don't have to,
Mhm.
or Advil.
Same here.
Like, I'll just like my girlfriend's always like, "You have a headache? I'll give you something." I was like, "No, I'll figure it out.
yeah.
I'll be all
I'll
right."
take a vitamin and drink some water.
Water,
That's what I always do.
exactly.
I'll
Yeah.
be okay in a
That's
couple
what
hours.
Mom
So
told
maybe
me to do.
that's
Exactly.
maybe that's what it is. It's like more of like a I don't like not feeling like myself.
Yeah.
So anything that makes me not feel like myself, besides alcohol, I've had me and alcohol are best friends sometimes.
I know.
But it's just like I just don't like the feeling. Like I was for a short time when I was a kid, I was prescribed Paxil,
Oh yeah.
and I hated the way it made me feel. It made me feel like not myself, and I would just like cry as a kid because I didn't know why
How
I
old
felt
were
this
you?
way. Like 10, 11.
Oh wow.
And I was a hypochondriac.
like
I
social anxiety.
no,
No,
No?
he was.
not at
Just
all.
hypochondria.
I thought I was gonna die all the time.
Oh my gosh.
I still have that.
My
habit
mom-
Which
sometimes.
is not unusual at that age, but it
Mhm.
probably just manifested just
hard.
Yeah.
The things that really my
And didn't you say your brother used to mess with you?
my brother, like, I would touch a berry
Siblings.
from a tree, and he's like, "Oh, you touched that?" He's like, "You're gonna die now." And my
Siblings,
funny,
siblings
but
are
it's
the worst.
And it was-
Siblings are the worst.
It was a lot of like stories like that. Like my mom told me a story when I was young about this guy who was cleaning out his gutters and touched bird poop, and then he touched his eyes and he went
Oh.
blind. And from that moment
Wow.
on, I was like, if I
Formative years.
if I touched bird
Right.
poop accidentally, I was like I thought, and then I was like, maybe I touched my mouth and I was spitting a whole like it. And my mom had to take me to the library when I was like 9, 10 years old, and we had to look up in the dictionary what rabies were because I was like, "Mom, I have rabies."
Oh
I
my
have
goodness.
rabies. And she's like, "Shane, you do not have." And I would go stay with my dad, and my dad was a lot less like, he was helpful. He would sit. I would just cry. I was like, "Dad," I would go to my dad and be like, "Dad, you're gonna die one day," and I would just cry because I was like, "You're gonna," that was sad to me, but I didn't. So I would call my mom at like 3 a.m. from my dad's house and be like, "There's robbers, and I think someone's gonna break in the house." I was just like a complete.
I
I
think
was
you were
scared
just
of-
super smart.
That sounds-
That's what I think.
That
Like
sounds
no,
very
seriously,
anxious,
like
too.
I
with
was
my
scared of
twins, I
everything.
think that,
Mhm.
and here I am, I will brag about my kids all the time, but I think that people and kids who are really smart, really creative,
Mhm.
and they, you're thinking through the realities, and it gets to be too much for you when you
Well,
think
ask
about
him even today. Like I am very factual. I think about like I'm very like rational, and this is how this works, and this is but it's like one day like a switch turned. I went from being scared of everything to like not scared of it. I had been fed up with worrying
Mhm.
and being so just like on edge all the time that it's like one day I hit a maturity level and I was just like, I'm done.
Well, and
I
you get
can't worry.
perspective. And
Yeah.
also, I grew up with my dad always telling me, because I worried about that kind of stuff, that you don't fight imaginary dragons.
Mhm.
Don't worry about things
Yeah.
that, first of all, you can't control.
Yeah.
Sounds like
That's
the
a big
title of
thing.
a song. I
Ah.
like it.
And secondly, things that you can't control and, things that are just completely out of your hands.
Yeah, I think I do have an understanding of that now that there's not, and I think it's kind of brought me back to that place when I was a little kid because having a daughter now, I worry a lot, and I don't worry about myself anymore. I worry about her,
Mhm.
and it's kind of brought me like this little hint of that feeling that I felt when I was a kid of worry because, like I said, I'll go to bed and I'll have nightmares of just something bad happening to my daughter, all kinds of weird, and I'm always, like I said, paranoid, watching people and just. Like, because I'm a realist. I think about like what would happen if she was taken. I would just be. I don't know what I would do. I would just be.
I think
broken.
that's a parenting thing too.
Mhm.
That you just, and sometimes you do think worst possible scenario.
And it's just like
Yeah.
I've never been so passionate about anything in my entire life.
Mhm.
So like to have these feelings of passion for like making sure that she's
another
safe.
human being is safe.
And it's gonna
yeah.
be hard when I get to that point when she's like a teenager and letting her just do things and not, you know what I mean, like, and not worrying about it.
and knowing and then you have to and I don't want to say like being like catastrophe type situations, but that is, as a parent, that's where you go.
Because I know it's not
it's a possibility
in her best interest or mine to be
Mhm.
that dad that's like, I got my gun and like all like that's not going to help anybody. I need to like
Yeah.
I've decided that, like I said earlier, I'm going to instill the information and let her make her own decisions to a certain extent. Obviously, if she's just making a lot of poor decisions,
Then we're gonna
I'm gonna
talk.
step
We're gonna have
in,
to
but-
reassess. My dad really did. My dad parented. Like I said, he was a single dad, and he parented with a fear base.
Yeah.
Like it was like, look, men want one thing from you, and this is what it is. And so, but like I said before, that also made me go, oh wait, my value lies in sex. My value lies in the fact that a man just wants to be with me physically. He would never want to get to know me or be interested in anything that I'm interested in. And like being honest, I'm 36 years old and I'm in therapy and I'm still trying to work through this and going like, oh my gosh, this is why every relationship I've ever been in has failed.
Yeah, I can definitely like resonate with that a little bit because I spent
Resonate.
Resonate. He loves to do this.
He comes by it honestly.
Hey, Chick does the same thing to me. Don't worry
It's
about
okay.
it.
No regrets.
Anyways,
No regrets.
Not one.
so when I was a kid, I stayed with my mom. Like she had full custody, and I would go see my dad's on the weekends. And I was definitely like a mama's boy and kind of sensitive. I'm still very sensitive, but like,
Oh, we know.
and then when I got to high school, my mom moved to Florida because she kind of like, I want to move to Florida. Is that okay with you? Blah, blah, blah. Anyways, I started living with my dad and I almost became a different person because of like the kind of atmosphere that I was in. It was very similar to what you're explaining.
Like character mirroring.
And kind of just like straight shooting you, like telling you like, this is what things are. And more of like a blunt, like very specific way of.
And speaking from, and that's how it was. And that's how I tell my kids, like, I appreciate your opinion and I value what you're saying, but we're going to speak from facts and not from emotions.
Well, it's weird because like when I was real emotional. I was scared to fight everybody, and I was contract. And then I feel like when I moved in with my dad, and I was like 17, and he's just like, don't take shit from anybody ever.
Yeah.
And then I kind of like got that mindset, and I went from one extreme to the other. I was like this little like, and then I was like, I'll fight everybody.
You
Like,
had to have some balance.
And
Yeah,
then-
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So does that yeah, exactly. Did that create balance in your life
no,
eventually?
so
No, absolutely not.
well, I spoke before you said eventually.
Okay.
So, yeah, in my early 19, 20, I was like out, just like, fuck with me. I dare you. Like,
I am ready.
I had been beat up, and I'm like, that's not that bad.
Yeah.
And
You
then,
actually do realize that it's not that bad
And
when you
then-
actually
Yeah.
do get beat up.
Yeah.
and then I
It's like,
think
okay.
5 years ago when I met Nicole, who I'm with now, she kind of, first of all, she's like, that's not going to fly. You can't be going out to bars all the time, getting in fights.
Just
And
ready.
I don't think that's attractive. And if you're going to continue to do that, I'm gone.
Mhm.
So when I was like, man, I might lose her. But then it gave me perspective. Like as time went on, I was like, you got to find a happy medium where like kind of pick your battles in the sense of like, don't take shit, but also like pick your battles and not
Right.
every little
Don't
inch-
invite it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's a good way.
not every little shoulder bump or
Means that
comment.
they're trying to fight.
I have to like
Come at me, bro.
humble that person.
Yeah.
So yeah, eventually I found some
balance.
yeah.
So how old are you now?
28.
You're 28. So you feel like you have definitely gained
I slip up
life
for
experience
sure.
and perspective from both parents and their style.
Fine, yeah. It took a while for it all to kind of come together, and I definitely slip up on both. I can 100%. Some days I'm way too sensitive. I let things get to me too much. And then other days I'm way too anger, and I'm like popping off on everybody, and people are cutting in front of me, and I'm flipping them off. And so but then I just kind of have to stop and be like, hey, like, chill out. It's not that big of a deal. Like I'll find myself riding someone's ass because and I'm just like, stop. It doesn't matter. You're, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
This
for
brings
you.
up a question to me that I thought about driving here today. Are you married?
My situation is very unique.
Okay.
I'm not married, but my children and their dad and I have been together since we were 16 and 17.
Okay.
We were married, we were divorced, and now we live in the same house. We cohabitate.
cohabitating.
We cohabitate. When our daughter was diagnosed, we realized like it benefits our entire family for us to be under the same household.
Mhm.
When you have a child that
Mhm.
experiences that frequency
Well,
of seizures and that
Honestly,
situation.
with any children, because
Yeah.
I think that you have an opportunity. Because I was thinking about this today. I think that a huge thing is for parents to be on the same page,
yeah,
whether they're in the same home
right.
or away
Yeah.
from each other.
Yeah.
And I can say that because I have either always been a single parent
Mhm.
or always been in a different book than a different page from the other
So
parent.
not even on the same page, just not even the same book.
And I think one of us wasn't reading a book. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure.
And
So
I almost feel like what you're gonna say is that I have an opportunity, since we're both in the household, to kind of give her
even if you're in different households,
Yeah.
to talk about how
The
you're going to
balance.
parent. I think people, myself included, you have kids without even really having that crucial conversation of what are we going to do with these people?
Yeah.
Well,
What's our job?
we definitely don't have the same guidelines, and it's something that we definitely need to work on. She has a very specific way that she likes it. We come from such different. She is like yin to my yang. I swear, like I come from a family where we all just yell at each other when we're mad and blah, like, and I get loud and raise my voice. And she comes from a family.
So, but what's your response after that? Like, you guys get loud and you get it out on the table, and then it's forgiven.
I'm almost like one of those people where I like really go off, and then 10 minutes later I'm fine.
He and I are
And
very
then- but-
similar because we've talked about this.
But
with,
you
like,
forgive and forget, and we move on.
Very,
Yeah.
very easily. Like
Okay, so what's her approach?
and she's very well,
just like Jen.
and I don't and I don't want to like, she's Catholic for one, and
Okay.
that comes with a very certain like particular culture, and she is a lot more religious than I am,
and it
and
could
that-
be based in guilt.
and that has caused, because I see, I don't think it should be shoved down your throat, and I don't think you should be made to do this, but I also want to find that happy medium where like she's able, like she was baptized Catholic, all that kind of stuff, and they go to church on Sundays when they can, but I hate to say this because I don't mean it in a mean way, but their family is more a little like passive aggressive,
Passive, sure.
and more like,
and carry it around
we
longer.
talk like
Yeah.
this, and you're not, I'm like, and just saying what they feel about you without actually saying it.
Right.
I mean, and I'll just go straight to my dad, straight to my mom, and say, "Look, you're pissing me off."
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. And it's caused, like, I feel like she's being passive aggressive with me sometimes, and I'm just straightforward, and she's like, she feels verbally,
attacked. Yeah,
because
she
she's not
feels attacked.
used to that.
Yeah.
That's something really.
Oh no! If we're feeling something, we're gonna shove it down into our guts and let it manifest as like an ulcer later in life.
And almost
yeah.
neither are healthy. Me yelling at her is not healthy, and her letting her feelings stay in. That's not healthy. So I have had to work on not cussing as a big thing, because I have a daughter, and when I get mad, I'm like, fucking,
Yeah, because then you have like 12 and 14-year-olds that cuss.
Yeah, I'm over that. As
I
long
am
as they use
too.
it in the right context.
Exactly, that's
I'm
what I
good.
said. We
Don't use it wrong.
when they were very little. We called them house words. If you are so moved that you feel like you need to curse, then you curse.
well, she'll go.
But I know that if you curse in front of like your aunt or somebody that you know you shouldn't curse in front of, you're gonna be in trouble.
Well, my daughter will go. She does two things. She'll go straight to Nicole and go, "Daddy said shit," like just like that. And then the other thing she'll do is, like, when it's just me and her, I'll be like, "God damn." She's like, "Daddy, what did you say? What did you say, Daddy?" Like, she'll just like want me to.
What'd you say?
She caught me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like,
You need a swear jar.
Yep.
yeah, it's really hard for me because I'm just like a passionate, like I'm very like,
But you don't want to also teach them like the connotation of words are like, that's subjective. In my opinion, that's subjective. But you also have respect for, like we talked about earlier, you have respect for the people around you, for your audience.
Yeah.
And if you like, like your Aunt Karen, who is a God-fearing woman, and we love her, and whether or not we believe in praying in Jesus or whatever, she prays for you.
Yeah.
Have respect for that,
Yeah.
and don't cross that line.
I didn't cuss in front of you until I was like 20 years old.
I didn't curse
And
in
he
front of my father
still
either.
looks at me when I curse like, oh, like
And
he's a little disappointed in me.
Well, no, and
Yeah.
it's my natural, like my natural vocabulary. I don't curse a lot because people have come on the show and been like, "Is it okay to like cuss?" Because I don't hear you guys do that very often. It's like I don't use that way to describe what I'm feeling.
I've been told I cuss too much on the
Oh, me
podcast.
too.
But I
people
don't
hate
care.
that
Do
I
whatever you
cuss.
want to do. It's your podcast. I don't care if you cuss too much or you cuss too little.
I mean, I think we had that conversation at one point. Like, I didn't want to just come on here and start.
Yeah, dropping F-bombs left and right.
Yeah, it's weird because even like, but I feel like people know and they don't give you the credit because I've not been invited on, like I said, like on AM FM radio. Like people have been like, "Hey, I've listened to your podcast. Can you not talk like that?" And I was like, "Actually, yeah, I'm an adult and I know
Yeah, it's
when
easy.
not to and when to."
Well, playing to, yeah,
I understand my
agree.
audience.
We
Yeah.
had CT on, and I feel like I've cussed in front of you, which I've even felt kind of weird about because
Because it's my mom.
because I'm trying to be like cautious of the people that are
The
around me.
audience.
So when CT came on, his mom, he said, my mom's going to be listening. And I don't think I cussed
the entire
time because I wanted her to be able to listen to it without having to.
Being offended.
And this is our podcast, but I felt enough respect for her to do that because it's easy for me to not cuss if I have to. He's an arena football player. He came on and we kind of talked.
You guys know a lot of people with initial names.
Yeah,
That's why
I'm
trying to follow.
TC and CT.
And then we have AP and BJ. Yeah.
And he talked conspiracies, intermittent fasting, and arena football. So
awesome.
It was a fun episode.
That sounds fun.
It's one of those things that's interesting about the podcast game because you'll do an episode and think, man, that was freaking awesome, and then nobody will download it because CT's episode was one of my favorite that we've ever done.
Yeah, felt good,
and it was like real low.
Your favorites will never be the audience favorites. Yeah.
Well, and it's hard, I think, because a lot of my friends will download your podcast and listen to it, and it's so different from episode to episode. And so people will listen to maybe one and think, I do have a couple of friends that my friend who's an MMA fighter, who's one of the vendors that I work with. And he keeps listening. Yeah. He's like, the first one I listened to didn't, and we kind of talked and laughed about it.
MMA fighter on here and then jiu-jitsu. And we talked to a lot of different,
but that's what I love about.
We had Chris Lytle on yet?
No, I want to. If you can give him a shout.
We're neighbors.
Let me know.
Yeah, we're neighbors.
Because I've interacted with him.
He kind of ghosted us.
I've interacted with him through Twitter. So like I think he's just busy. So like
he ghosted you.
He did. I think
he did. I wouldn't say he ghosted. We planned for a date and then I texted it or messaged him on Twitter, like kind of leading up to it, and he's like, "Oh, I can't do it that day."
And he ghosted.
You're rationalizing.
No. I'm just trying to be nice because I would like him to come on.
Tell him, Mom.
I would just like him to come on. I'm a nice guy, okay? But
things your mother can say,
really
other people can't say.
I'm really pretty and I'm really nice.
Shut up. But no, I have really enjoyed this episode. This is one of my favorites. I hope people listen to it because I think there's a lot of good stuff. I mean, I didn't even touch a lot of the questions that I'd written out because we ended up going over them anyways. So
I think there's a lot of people out there that
it went really well.
Would like to talk about parenting, and that's not something that we usually touch on. So
I think you should do it again.
I
see Facebook posts all the time of friends that are like, "Oh my God,
please help! Yeah,
I can't do this another day."
I'm gonna be honest, man. I thought we were gonna come on here and you're gonna be like, "Surprise, we're pregnant." I really thought that's what was going to happen.
That would be good.
I'm going to write that down. No, we are in the, it's just weird, that whole situation too, because Jen's grandma came to us and was like, well, you're not doing it right. And I'm like,
old people are the worst when it comes to stuff like this.
This is the most uncomfortable thing, especially when people are like, so are you trying to have kids? They're family. And once again, you guys know, I'm kind of uncomfortable about things like sex and things like that.
I actually just learned that, but yes, I'm seeing it now.
In personal interaction. And then so when somebody's like, so you guys trying to have kids yet? It's like, so are you trying to bang my niece or what? Are you going to be getting it on? And I'm
this is not the same, but
just leave me alone about it.
Ever since I got engaged or whatever, people just are always asking me did you set a date? Did you do? And I'm just like, the summer.
Yeah.
I just don't that was, I enjoy that we're more committed now and she has a ring and all that stuff. But the part about just people at work always when are you doing it? Have you guys started planning? Have you done this? And I was like, actually, and I'm super honest. I'm like, we haven't done anything. Both of us have done zero.
Talk opportunity.
Yeah. I think it is
people excited.
Yeah, exactly. People love talking about weddings. It's a happy time, and I think you're right. It's just it's a talking point. For you, it's very personal, but for them,
I've gotten a lot of shit before because I don't call her my fiance. I just say my girlfriend because it's not
fiance weird to you. I feel like it
weird.
is.
I don't like.
And I've never.
She's going to be my girlfriend, and then she's going to be my wife. There's no in between.
There is no in between because you're almost 30 years old, and we don't have to say those things.
Exactly, and all it does is beg questions. I don't want to answer these. So I'm like, my girlfriend. Why are you calling her your girlfriend? Because I don't want. As soon as I say fiance in a room full of people, they're like, oh, when are you guys doing this? When are you doing that?
And I remember we had a comedian on a long time. Okay, you guys might remember this. Do you remember Sabrina the Teenage Witch
Yes.
Show.
Yeah.
Okay, so we had it wasn't
Is it the cat?
no, it was not the cat.
It was
not the
one of the ladies, right?
the older one.
Yes.
Yeah. She didn't have a fiance and she didn't have a boyfriend, but she was like, but we're like, he's more than my boyfriend and we're not engaged to be married. So she always was like, my lover.
Lover.
And I was like,
That
when
would
she
bother
said-
me.
I was like, did she say
That just
lover?
automatically makes me think that they have really good sex.
Yeah, I know. And I was like, girl, you're creepy. Like, you get down. Like, like, I didn't know. But I was like, there really needs to be a better word for this.
Yeah.
And she's totally fine with me not calling her,
Yeah.
and she doesn't. I mean, she wears the ring, and that's what we do. It doesn't have to be a whole thing, but
Yeah.
it just gets a little
You
tiring.
can call her your betrothed.
Yeah, betrothed. That's another one. I
And
heard that before.
That sounds exhausting.
And I love Jen's family. Like I as soon as we met, like I was like, they're my people. Like I get them. I love them. But they are very like, that is like, family is very important to them. And I know family is very important to us as well. But like, I feel like we have a little bit more of a distance between each other.
We don't talk about stuff.
Yes, exactly. And
But you don't love each other any less.
no,
Yeah.
and that's what
You and I talk.
that's what I'm trying to get at, is that's why like that conversation happens a lot more with them than it does with like my family, because they are so close. They're very close. And that's what it kind of like, I loved it when I got kind of indoctrinated into the family, because I was like,
It's a
oh
whole
yeah,
nother-
you're like,
But you know what? We're super close. But the difference is there are a lot of men in her family.
yes.
And there are a lot of women in our
Oh.
family. So we're super tight. But I think you don't get that feeling because
Yeah.
it's all
It's
ladies.
it's everybody.
Yes, and everybody.
Because we have a lot of aunts.
That's so funny.
But we're getting to the point that I think Shane's getting ready. He's needing to go. I know you're not worried about time, but I'm just trying to make sure everybody else is good on their time.
Sure.
And we're at an hour and 30, and it just kind of flew by. I love it, and it was a great episode. So once again, Blonde on Brunette.
Yeah, Blonde on Brunette is
Terrible
on
podcast.
Blonde on Brunette is strictly a YouTube channel, and just search us on all social media. And then the Not Terrible podcast with Jess Hooker is me by myself.
Yes.
And Caitlin has some private projects that she's doing. She
Mhm.
does Collective Flaws, that is a YouTube channel.
Oh, nice.
Some
Sorry,
stuff going
post
on.
that. I need to look that up.
Yeah, Collective Flaws is it's a very positive, uplifting, just like touching on ways that we can all be better.
Mhm.
She's doing that. So we have projects together, we have projects apart, and super supportive.
Mhm.
And we're obviously different. She's 24 and I'm 36,
Yeah.
and it's just we all have something to bring to the table.
And
So
that's
check us
what I
out.
thought
Yeah.
was so great about this episode, was just there's just a lot of different experience right here.
Yeah.
Like, and it's awesome. And I don't want to like throw you under the bus saying that we're quitting because you have to go, by
It's
the
all
way.
your
I just
fault.
I just want you to know that.
Shane, I have to go too. It's
It,
fine.
it was
I didn't
mainly
think-
I just thought people needed to either go to the bathroom, grab another beer,
That's
or
actually
something like
me.
that.
Yeah, like I need another Budweiser.
and,
Yeah.
I need another Bloody
I
Mary.
genuinely didn't think anything.
So,
of that.
but anyways, like I said, this is a great episode. I hope everybody enjoys it. Shane usually takes us out with our slogan,
We hope you guys enjoyed the podcast, and hopefully the juice is worth the squeeze.
and then we're going out to DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. Parents just don't
Oh,
understand.
I love it.
Parents are the same, no matter time, no place. They don't understand that us kids are going to make some mistakes. So to you other kids all across the land, there's no need to argue. Parents just